And we want to go out to Eric Leonard. He was just in the courtroom moments ago. Eric.
Hi there. So the whole proceeding is now on hold. There is nothing that's going to happen for the next few hours. The judge has sent everyone out of the courtroom and is meeting privately with the attorneys. The issue that has come up has to do with the motion that we first reported last night, recently filed by the district attorney's office, revealing that a pre-parole risk assessment of both Eric and Lyle Menendez had been drafted by the State Department of Corrections, and copies of that were available to the judge in this proceeding if the judge wanted to review them. Well, the district attorney's office apparently has also received copies of this information, and Eric and Lyle Menendez's defense lawyer in this proceeding, Mark Garrigus, interrupted what was happening in court this morning to say to the judge, if the DA's office were to use the information gleaned from what up to this moment is still a confidential report, the DA's office would have an unfair advantage in court because Garrigus has not been allowed to see this, and in fact the judge himself has not seen this report. Well, the question is, what impact could the information in this report have on the entire resentencing proceeding? After all, the governor ordered the State Department of Corrections and its parole unit to conduct this new psychological evaluation of the brothers to find out if they are suitable for release, and if so, what sort of risk they might present to the public. This is a confidential report that delves into psychological areas. It's not something that would be public. But the judge agreed with Garrigus to some degree, saying, I cannot make a decision about this resentencing unless I know what's in that report, because were we to find out afterwards and the report was entirely favorable to the Menendez brothers, while the judge hypothetically might deny the resentencing, well, then everyone afterwards is going to ask, well, Judge, why didn't you wait to see what was in the report before you made this decision? Conversely, the same thing could happen. The judge could approve the resentencing and then only to read in this report months from now that in fact the corrections department, the parole department had some strong reservations about the potential danger that the brothers could present to society. There was a lot of argument back and forth, raised voices, each side accusing one another of being disingenuous and unethical in court, both for having access to this. And then, as you heard Robert Kovacic discussing a few minutes ago, the defense, again, Mark Garrigus, raised the idea that the entire DA's office was unfairly biased and had been demonstrating what he believes is unfair bias against the brothers throughout the process, and even brought up the fact that Nathan Hochman grew up in Beverly Hills around the time that the Menendez murders happened. So the judge stopped the proceedings temporarily. He said, let's take a break. The judge wants to call the governor's office directly, because the governor's office has control of that risk assessment report, and find out whether or not it is legally permissible for the judge to have access to that report prior to conducting this hearing and reaching a decision. And if the answer is yes, this entire proceeding might be delayed. If the answer is no, then it sort of limits the question in front of the judge right back to those core resentencing issues that we were all here to see if the judge were to resolve to begin with. From the bench, Judge Michael Jessic has said that just even given the idea that this risk assessment is out there and this information is out there, there's no way he would reach a decision today or tomorrow during this resentencing hearing about how to resolve all of this. Meaning we're not going to find out at the end of the resentencing hearing that's happening right now whether or not the judge believes the brothers should be resentenced, and we're not going to proceed even taking those witnesses, hearing the argument from the attorneys, until the judge says he has clarity about whether or not he can access this information, this report, this risk assessment report, and if so, what's in it. So everything's at a standstill for the next couple of hours while that gets resolved. And as I mentioned, right before I left the courtroom, the judge had invited all of the attorneys back to his chambers to have a discussion about this, probably also a discussion about some of the raised voices and the arguments that came up during the hearing this morning. But that's the gist of it here. Everything's on pause. They're going to try to get some clarity about whether or not this risk assessment will be a factor. And depending on the outcome of that, we'll find out at 1:30 if the hearing is going to go on, witnesses are going to testify, and lawyers on each side are going to make argument about why the brothers should or should not be considered for a resentencing. Back to you.
Eric, thank you so much for that.